Yo everyone, what's going on? Ben here, and today I'm going to share some tips and common mistakes that I see cubers do all the time. Let's go! Tip number 1 is a simple one. Stop regripping when you have no reason to do that. I see people regripping for RU prime R prime, and the regrip doesn't even do anything. People also regrip for other things like RU R prime, and those can be solved by better finger tricks, or using better algs and F moves for F2L. However, this leads to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to not overdo F moves and fancy F2L algs. Short videos teaching cool F2L algs have exploded in popularity in the past few years, and I've made some myself even, but a good bit of them are even faster. You should do your own research, try the new alg and your old alg, the old RU rotation alg versus the rotationless thing, and see if it's actually faster. I'll give an example. As for F moves, the same concept applies. F move inserts can be good, but I feel like they're a bit overrated and people tend to do them way too much, even when it hurts them. You should actually time it. Time this versus doing this. Or another thing, let's say you have this pair, I do see some people doing this. And I doubt that's faster than just rotating and solving the pair normally. So I do think you should not be scared to rotate during F2L. Rotations are fine. The problem people talk about is rotating way too much, which would be something like this. Tip 3 is, I feel like some cubers just refuse to learn algorithms even when it really hurts them. In my opinion, every cuber who's trying to get faster should know at least full OLL and PLL, and probably some more random algs. In my opinion, you should learn PLL at the latest at around 30 to 35 average, and OLL at the latest at about 20 to 25 average. But there's no harm in learning them earlier. There is only benefit and no harm in learning full PLL and OLL earlier. Tip 4 relates very much to tip 3, and that's learning algs right, which is by tracking pieces. Most tutorials only use triggers and muscle memory, and that's very easy to forget cases. And also, an additional thing is when solving FMC or one-handed, it's super hard to remember your algs for some new cubers. By learning more or less how the alg works, you'll memorize it more effectively and be able to learn algs quicker. Here's an example. For this algorithm, which I'll put on screen right now, you could memorize it by sexy, RU prime R prime, F prime F, insert. Or you can remember it like this. Take this pair out, break it up, pair the pair up in this weird way, and insert it back in. Tip 5 is very straightforward. Use your inspection time. You have 15 seconds, so use them. If you feel like you're done inspecting in the first 4 or 5 seconds, you should always keep looking for the next thing in your solve. Whether that be finishing the cross or playing your first pair after a cross. There's no reason to not use at least 10 to 12 seconds of your inspection in every solve. My final tip is going to be a bit more specific. Making X crosses or preserving pairs, those are great things, but forcing them when the scramble isn't good for those is not good. Even if it comes out to be less moves, moves during cross are less ergonomic and therefore slower. 10 moves to still have a cross plus a pair is usually better than 9 moves for an X cross. Here's an example. Instead of an X cross, we're going to look at preserving a pair, but it's the same concept. I just do white on the scramble. It might not be the best color, but it's good for this example. My cross solution is going to be what's on screen right now. As you can see, there's a pair right here, and there's basically no way to preserve it. You can preserve it by adding 4 or 5 moves, but this is what I'm saying, that it's probably not worth it. So I will just do the cross normally. And in fact, you can just solve a different pair here easily, like this.
Hi everyone, Antonie here. I'll be discussing what I believe to be the reasons that you are not improving and what I believe you can do to break the plateau. So starting off with the basics, what does a solve really consist of? Well, a solve consists of the amount of turns you make, so the move count, and the turns per second you have, so your turning speed. So in general, if you're on a plateau, you're probably not improving either one, and in order to break the plateau, you want to improve at least one of these two aspects without worsening the other, and this is a very important condition to keep in mind. So improve either turns per second or move count without worsening the other. So let's say you want to improve your move count. Depending on the event, it might be good to expand your knowledge of algorithms to lower your move count. Think of events such as 2x2, cube, square one, and 3x3. Especially for these events, extra algorithms can help you lower your move count. And one important thing with learning new algs is that you should make sure that you learn how to recognize these cases for which you have learned algs in a good way. Otherwise, you will have pauses in your solves. And this is important to keep in mind because having pauses in your solve will, over the course of the whole solve, worsen your turns per second and might actually give you a worse time. Moving on, you might think that improving your turns per second is a better way to go. There are two main things that I think cause people to plateau on turning speed. Firstly, I think it's bad finger trick habits. I would definitely advise beginners and intermediates to try to develop their turning style well, as this will be a lot harder to change when you're faster. And also, I think that getting too comfortable at your current turning speed is something that causes plateaus. Again, this is more applicable to beginner and intermediate cubers, but definitely not exclusive to them. So what I'd advise you to do is, if you're comfortable at your turning speed, to start turning just a little bit faster than comfort. And in the beginning, of course, this will not feel comfortable, but over time you will get used to this and will ultimately have a faster base turning speed. Lastly, I think just like with any other sport and hobby, lack of consistent practice may cause you to plateau. In my experience, practicing for 30 minutes every day is much more useful than practicing 4 hours once a week. So I'd say try to have consistent practice. Those were all the tips I have. I hope you found them useful and that they will help you break your plateaus. Good luck, everyone.